With their Kickstarter campaign launching on September 25th of 2019, M1K believed they had the answer for fingertip users wanting more, and weighing in at only 23 grams, the M1K is definitely something to brag about, even achieving their funding goal of 37,360 euros in just under 10 minutes. Today, we'll be finding out if M1K and their fingertip-oriented mouse really is all that it claims to be, while looking into what was lost or ignored in the process of achieving this small form factor hailed as such a large feat. Before we get started though, I just want to say that this mouse was sent out for review by a fellow Discord user named QSXCV on the M1K Discord server. But you should know that all opinions here are my own, and this does not affect my review in any way. It should also be noted that this mouse is not always available for purchase. Based on the info located on their website, the next planned sale according to the site says February 21st. My name's Aithey, and this is the M1K from M1K. Since this is technically a used unit, the presentation here won't be exact to what you can expect if you purchased it yourself, though from what I can tell, the unboxing experience here is pretty much identical to a new unit, minus the thank you note. The mouse comes in a metal tin, with the insides protected by soft foam, with the mouse sitting in the middle surrounded in a perfect circle by its own cable. Really clean presentation here, and the inclusion of a collectible tin is always a nice one. The M1K is equipped with the PixArt PMW3360, while the default DPI is 800. The steps can be adjusted in increments of 100, starting from 100 DPI all the way up to 12,000 DPI, according to my testing with mouse tester software. Though the M1K does not have any software, the DPI, LOD, and angle snapping can all be changed on the mouse via button combinations. Additionally, the firmware is open source, and you can install custom firmware by following the instructions listed on their site to adjust things in any way you want them. In order to change the DPI, you simply lift the mouse off the pad and hold both buttons for 5 seconds, and then adjust with mouse button 1 or mouse button 2. To change LOD or angle snapping, you would hold mouse button 1 or mouse button 2, depending on the result you were looking for, while plugging in the mouse to adjust LOD from 2mm to 3mm, almost similar to how changing certain settings with Zowie mice would have worked in the past. Specific details on everything I've mentioned can be found on their website, as they keep everything documented for you. You're also able to overclock the M1K to 8000 Hz, similar to the new Viper 8K from Razer. Lastly, the M1K is also capable of producing some of the fastest clicks on a mouse due to its zero lag switch debouncing. The most I can say on this is that I hope to provide click latency tests in the future, but for now, I won't be able to test this, so we'll just have to take their word for it. Now before we get into the buttons, here's a quick sound test. Mouse 1 and Mouse 2 are the stars of the show here, considering they are the only buttons you'll find on this mouse. Switches used here are D2F01F Japanese Omrons, and they feel awesome in this carbon fiber body. Clicks feel light and snappy, and surprisingly silent compared to other fingertip mice we'll be discussing later in this review. There's barely any pre-travel here, almost none, though when it comes to post-travel, there's a fair bit of it here. Unless you're heavy-handed with your clicks though, it's not very likely that you'll notice the post-travel in this case. But this is still something that I felt was worth noting here. While the M1K does not feature any side buttons, I think the idea here is that it would be hard to use side buttons on a shape like this without totally ruining your aim, along with keeping the weight of the mouse extremely low. Similar to the previously mentioned side buttons, you won't find a scroll wheel here. Achieving a low weight was key here, and a mouse only focused on lower weight and perfect aim. While I think I could survive without a few side buttons, I think the addition of a scroll wheel here could have been really great. Hopefully it's something we can see in the future. The shape here is rounded at the back, and then falls off hard into a flat surface on the top and sides. While the top isn't perfectly flat, it's far less aggressive in its slope than that of the HSK, which I much prefer here in the M1K. Using the two mice side by side, it becomes obvious how annoying the aggressive slope of the HSK can be when pulling the mouse toward your palm. While the mouse does appear and feel glossy, the mouse does not have any coating, rather an epoxy on top of its carbon fibers. In regards to shapes like these though, it's been interesting to see how M1K have responded to clones like the HSK. Rather than being offended, it's refreshing to see that they're actually very welcome to the idea that other companies are trying to appease fingertip users, the same as they they are. In the eyes of Zongkunik, it seems they're more interested in keeping fingertip grip alive rather than making a huge profit, based on a few conversations that I've had with one of their reps. You won't see this often in my reviews, but I just want to do a quick comparison between the M1K, HSK, MK01, and MM720, so I hope you don't mind. For those looking to try one of these light and small mice, I've gathered a few that I found most similar in their form factors, as I feel this information might be useful to some people, whether it be a claw or fingertip user. The M1K and HSK, when measured at about where you grip the sides, are both around 58mm wide, while the MK01 is 60mm at the highest point in the middle. Finally, the MM720 being the widest of the bunch at 72mm. The HSK and MK01 and the MM720 are all around 35mm tall at their highest points, while the M1K is the shortest of the bunch at around 30mm. Now onto my personal thoughts with each of these mice. Right off the bat, if you're a claw fingertip hybrid, I would not recommend the HSK or M1K. The M1K was obviously made with fingertip in mind, and the rounding at the back should not be confused for a hump. The HSK, on the other hand, seems like they were either trying to please both crowds or made what I would call training wheels for fingertip grip. What I mean by this is maybe somebody who isn't fully confident in their ability to fingertip grip wants some kind of stability, but I honestly feel like this gets in the way of your aiming than actually bringing any benefit. Not only this, but as mentioned before, when pulling the HSK and M1K toward your palm, the movement doesn't feel as smooth or natural with the HSK in comparison. The flatter slope of the M1K feels more stable in use. Now when it comes to the MM720 and the MK01, I think there's hope for claw and fingertip users. While the MM720 does have the better feature set in regards to side button thickness and a much larger hump in comparison to the MK01, I think for me personally, the MK01 is a knockout against it. The MM720 is rather large in comparison, and when it comes to the MK01, my hand just consumes this mouse and allows me to control almost every aspect of its movement. When holding the MM720, while it feels almost identical to the way I hold the MK01, it feels as if there's almost too much going on at the backside hump with claw or fingertip for me to aim quickly and comfortably, while the right side fall off just hurts my pinky as well. I'll say this though, as somebody with 18x10 hands who's hovered between fingertip and claw for a long time, I personally really like the M1K and the MK01. However, this comparison is only based on the week or so of use I've had with all of these. I feel like the M1K could easily be above all of these mice previously mentioned, but that's only if you put enough time into getting used to this purely fingertip shape. It's definitely going to take some dedication to get used to a shape like this if you're not familiar with fingertip. So just to sum things up, fingertip, M1K over the HSK, unless you absolutely need a scroll wheel. MK01 isn't a bad choice either. Claw fingertip hybrid, MK01 over the MM720, unless you prefer larger side buttons and RGB, though please keep your hand size in mind. Now for some of the bigger surprises here. I'd heard a lot about the M1K cable in the past and was pleasantly surprised to see that the hype was not wrong here. Despite being a rubber cable, this cable feels great compared to many stock paracord-like offerings in other mice. When compared to the HSK and its stock cable, the difference here is just night and day. In my previous review of the HSK, I was pretty annoyed with just how much I could feel the cable between movements. While the M1K weighs even less than the HSK, the cable here is barely an issue for me in use. When it comes to the feet on the M1K, you're provided with the Hyperglide dots. I would consider these some of the best mouse feet on the market, right alongside TigerArc 1s. Really solid mouse feet here otherwise. According to my scale, the M1K weighs in at around 21 grams, and 23 grams with just a little bit of cable. I have to say, originally I did not expect 37 grams, down to 20 grams would feel like a huge difference, but I'm honestly shocked by how heavy the HSK feels in comparison. If I thought the HSK was the equivalent of using a brush, the M1K feels like you're writing with a pencil. When it comes to build quality, the M1K is a strong one, despite its appearance. No surprises here after coming from the HSK though. With the top shell made from carbon fiber and a bottom plate of 3D printed honeycomb ABS, this mouse is extremely solid. No side flex on the sides or top that I can feel in my unit. The shell is held together by 4 torque screws, and thankfully, they're not hidden behind the mouse feet. Great positioning here by Zongkunik. No surprises with the build quality here, considering these mice are all handmade. The first time I'd seen the M1K in photos, I wasn't an immediate believer. I had my doubts, and I'm honestly so thankful that I was wrong in my original thinking. Where the HSK failed for me personally, the M1K came in and cleaned up a lot of those problems for me. While I do wish it had a scroll wheel, I don't think I'll be switching back anytime soon. From here on, I'm hopeful we'll see some more companies take risks on really cool and unique shapes like the ones we've discussed here today. I hope to see more from Zaunkönig in the future with their M1K and more to come. Zaunkönig, 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 Zaunkönig.